They used to call every week, sometimes twice. You'd hear their voice, catch up on life, laugh about little things, and for just a moment, everything felt right. But now, silence. Days turn into weeks. Your phone doesn't ring. And that quiet, it gets louder than any noise you've ever known. If you've been feeling that ache in your heart, the kind that comes from waiting, wondering, and slowly realizing that your grown children aren't reaching out like they used to, this video is for you. Not because we're here to dwell in sadness, but because we're going to talk about how to cope, how to heal, and how to find peace again, even when the people you love most seem to have drifted away. See, this isn't just about missed calls or empty inboxes. This is about emotional abandonment. And for many of us, especially in the later years of life, it hits harder than we expected. You give your whole heart raising your kids. You sacrifice. You cheer them on. And then somewhere along the way, the roles reverse. But instead of being supported, you're left behind. It's confusing. It's painful. And worse, it makes you question your worth. But here's the thing. You are not alone. More and more seniors are feeling emotionally abandoned by their adult children. And yet almost no one talks about it. We're going to change that today. We're going to talk through what this feels like, why it happens, and most importantly, how to stop letting it steal your joy. Because your happiness, your sense of purpose, that doesn't end just because someone else forgets to pick up the phone. So let's start with something simple but powerful. Let's talk about expectations. One of the hardest parts of feeling abandoned is the mental script we've carried for years. My kids will visit every Sunday. They'll call when something good happens, or when something bad does. We'll always stay close. And when reality doesn't match that script, it hurts. But expectations are tricky. The more we tie our happiness to what others should do, the more power we give them over our peace of mind. Now, this doesn't mean you should just stop caring. Of course not. Love doesn't turn off like a switch. But adjusting your expectations without bitterness can actually be a form of protection. It's not lowering your standards. It's removing the invisible leash around your heart that gets yanked every time you hope for a call that doesn't come. You might be thinking, but they're my children. Shouldn't they want to check in? Shouldn't they care? Yes, in an ideal world, yes. But people get caught up in their own lives. Jobs, kids, stress, distractions. It doesn't excuse neglect, but explains why it happens more than we like to admit. And that brings us to the next point. We tend to personalize what's not always personal. When your child stops calling, it feels like a rejection, like they've turned their back on you, like maybe you did something wrong. And that's where the mind spins, replaying old memories, analyzing past conversations, wondering, did I mess up somehow? But here's the truth. Not every silence is about you. Sometimes their distance is rooted in their own emotional issues. Maybe they're overwhelmed. Maybe they're dealing with guilt or depression or unresolved childhood stuff they've never confronted. Maybe they convince themselves that you're strong enough, that you don't need to check in. Or maybe they're just not emotionally equipped to handle both their world and yours. Now, I know that doesn't make it feel any better, but it might help you take a little of that weight off your shoulders. You don't have to carry the blame. You don't have to keep playing detective trying to figure out where things went wrong. Sometimes people change. Sometimes they drift, and while it's sad, it's not always about your worth. So what can you do? This might sound counterintuitive, but the first step is to stop waiting. I mean, really, stop sitting by the phone, checking the clock, rereading old text threads, because waiting keeps you stuck. It puts your emotional well-being in someone else's hands. And let's be honest, you've lived too long and learned too much to let your peace depend on someone else's schedule. Instead, I want you to redirect that energy into your own life. And no, this isn't just about staying busy. It's about staying connected to yourself, to others, and to the things that make life meaningful. Is there a friend you haven't talked to in a while? A neighbor who might enjoy a chat over coffee? A group you've always thought about joining, but never got around to? This is the time to open those doors. I know some of you might be saying, but I'm tired. I've done the reaching out. I've done the work. I just wanted them to do it this time. And I hear you. That desire is valid. But you don't have to choose between giving up and chasing after. There's a middle ground. It's called reclaiming your focus. Saying, I love them. I wish things were different. But I'm not going to let this void swallow me whole. And if that sounds easier said than done, don't worry. It gets easier with practice. You start small. You create little moments that remind you, I'm still here. I still matter. my life still has joy to offer. That might mean setting a goal to do one thing each day just for yourself. Maybe it's walking in the morning sun. Maybe it's journaling with your coffee. Maybe it's starting a project or learning something new. Something you've always been curious about but never made time for. This isn't just keeping busy. This is choosing you again. After all those years of caring for others, now is the moment to care for yourself with just as much love, just as much patience, and just as much grace. Now that we've talked about expectations and the pain of personalization, let's move forward and look at how to build emotional strength in a world that doesn't always give you the support you hope for. Because here's the truth that doesn't get said enough. You are allowed to miss them and still move forward. You are allowed to feel disappointed and still decide that this season of life belongs to you, not to their absence. Let's talk about something that often gets overlooked but plays a huge role in healing: emotional strength. Not the tough it out kind where you pretend everything's fine. I mean the quiet kind of strength that shows up when you choose peace over resentment, when you choose to protect your heart without closing it off completely. See, when the people we love stop showing up, there's a very real temptation to build walls. You might find yourself thinking, if they don't call, why should I care? I'll just stop caring altogether. But here's the problem with that. When you shut down emotionally to protect yourself from pain, you also block the possibility of connection elsewhere. Emotional strength doesn't mean shutting the door. It means being strong enough to leave it unlocked, just in case someone decides to walk back through. It means finding ways to protect your peace without hardening your heart. And sometimes that starts with simply telling yourself the truth. Yes, this hurts, but no, it won't define me. Now, let's get practical for a second. One of the most powerful things you can do when you're feeling emotionally abandoned is to re-anchor yourself in community. And no, I'm not just talking about joining a club or attending an event, although those things can help. I'm talking about being seen, really seen. Because what's often missing when your children pull away isn't just their voice or their updates. It's that deep feeling of being known, of someone checking in on you, of someone saying, I was thinking about you today. That doesn't have to come from family. It can come from chosen family, from friends, from neighbors, from people who get it. If you're in a community with other seniors, don't be afraid to open up about this. You might be surprised how many others feel the same way, but have kept it inside, thinking they were the only one. There's power in saying out loud, I'm feeling a little forgotten lately. There's healing in hearing someone else say, me too. And if you're not yet part of a group or haven't connected in a while, think about taking that small, brave step to start. Call someone up, invite them for coffee. Sign up for something that interests you, even if you feel a little nervous walking in alone. Because what often starts as a simple conversation can grow into a real friendship, one that fills the empty spaces with laughter, with understanding, with warmth. Now let's talk about something else that's just as important as connection: boundaries. You might think that boundaries are only for situations where someone is mistreating you, but actually, they're just as crucial when it comes to emotional distance. Because when your child stops calling, there's a temptation to overcompensate. You might start calling them more often, sending more texts, leaving longer voicemails, trying just to get some kind of response. But sometimes that effort ends up hurting more than helping. Not just because it feels like begging for scraps of attention, but because it puts your well-being in a constant cycle of hope and disappointment. So here's what emotional boundaries look like. It means deciding how often you want to reach out, and doing so from a place of love, not desperation. Maybe you send one message a week, or check in once a month with no expectation. Maybe you stop reaching out altogether for a while, to give yourself space to breathe and refocus. And here's the real power in that. You start reclaiming your emotional rhythm. You stop dancing to the beat of someone else's silence. You find a pace that feels kind, but also protective. You say to yourself, I will always love them, but I won't keep breaking my own heart waiting for them to show it back. Some people hear the word boundary and think it sounds cold or final, but actually it's the opposite. Boundaries make relationships safer. They make you safer. And when someone does eventually reach back out, and many times they do, you'll be in a stronger place to engage with love, not resentment. Now, I want to touch on something that might feel like a tough pill to swallow, but it needs to be said. Just because your child doesn't call doesn't mean your story is over. You still have more to write. And not just any story, a meaningful one, a joyful one filled with new people, new habits, and new ways of feeling fulfilled. Think about something that used to light you up. Maybe it was gardening. Maybe it was painting, volunteering, teaching, telling stories, being around animals. There's a version of your life where you pour all that love, the love that's waiting to be expressed, into something that gives back, that reflects your heart, that reminds you what it feels like to be alive and valued. And if you can't think of anything right away, that's okay. You don't have to have it all figured out. Just start by being curious again. Ask yourself, what's something I've never done because I was too busy taking care of others? Then try it, even just once. Let yourself be surprised by what brings you joy now, at this stage in your life. Because here's what I know for sure. This chapter isn't about waiting. It's about becoming. Becoming someone who learns how to thrive, even in the face of disappointment. Someone who finds peace, not because life went as planned, but because they chose to keep showing up anyway. And that, more than anything, is what emotional resilience looks like. Not having a perfect life, not getting everything you wanted, but waking up each day and saying, this is my life, and I'm going to fill it with meaning, even if some people forget to call. You deserve that. You really do. And here's the thing most people won't tell you. Coping with emotional abandonment doesn't mean pretending you're fine. It doesn't mean bottling things up or brushing off the hurt with a smile. In fact, one of the bravest things you can do right now is feel it. To give yourself permission to grieve what's been lost, even if no one else around you seems to understand. Because it is a loss, isn't it? Not the kind with flowers and funerals, but quiet kind of loss that eats away at you. The loss of connection, the loss of routine, the loss of what you pictured growing old would look like. You expected holidays full of laughter and grandkids running around. You expected your birthday to still mean something to them. You expected to be needed, maybe not like before, but still a little. Instead, there's an empty chair, a quiet house, and this lingering question. Did I matter as much to them as they mattered to me? Let me say this as clearly as I can. You did. You do. Your love didn't vanish because their calls did. Your value is measured by how often someone checks in. And even though this hurts deeply, it doesn't erase the love you gave, the nights you stayed up sick with worry, the sacrifices you made without ever asking for credit, the little things you did just to see them smile. None of that is wasted. It's woven into their lives, whether they acknowledge it or not. But your worth, that lives right here, with you, not with their phone habits, not with their presence or absence. With you, this is the moment where healing begins, not by forgetting them, but by remembering yourself. You are still here. You still wake up each morning with a chance to make the day your own. You still have memories worth sharing, wisdom worth passing down, love worth giving. And maybe it's time that some of that love gets directed back at the person who's always been holding everything together, you. Now, I want to take a moment to talk about forgiveness, not because it's easy, not because you have to, but because holding on to anger is like drinking poison and hoping it hurts someone else. It rarely does. Most of the time, the only person suffering is the one carrying the grudge. So, if you're carrying pain, if you're carrying resentment or guilt or anything else that's been sitting heavy on your chest, ask yourself, is this helping me or is this keeping me stuck? Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It doesn't mean giving someone a free pass or excusing neglect. It just means releasing yourself from the emotional prison of constantly replaying the past. You don't even have to tell them you've forgiven them. Sometimes, forgiveness is a quiet moment alone where you simply say, I'm tired of carrying this, and you set it down. You might have been wronged, you might have been forgotten, but you're not powerless. You get to choose what you carry with you into this next chapter, and what you finally leave behind. That includes the stories you tell yourself. Because here's what can happen over time. We start building a narrative. They don't care about me. I must not be important anymore. I must have failed somehow as a parent. And if we repeat those stories enough, we start to believe them. But what if the truth is more complicated? What if it's not that they don't care, but that they don't know how to show it? What if it's not that you failed, but that they become distracted or emotionally unavailable in ways that have nothing to do with you? You don't have to rewrite their actions, but you can rewrite your internal script. Try this one. I was a good parent. I did the best I could. I may not have done everything perfectly, but I loved deeply. I showed up. I gave my all. Say it out loud if you need to. Whisper it. Shout it. Write it down. Post it on your bathroom mirror. Because that truth, it's powerful. And sometimes we need to hear it from someone else before we start believing it ourselves. Let's also talk about something that often gets dismissed when we talk about emotional pain: loneliness. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not something to be embarrassed about. In fact, loneliness is one of the most common and most quietly devastating experiences for people in their later years. And yet, we rarely admit it. You can be surrounded by people and still feel lonely. You can go to church, to the grocery store, to the senior center, and still carry that emptiness inside if the people you really want to hear from aren't showing up. So what do you do with that? You start by giving your loneliness a name. Instead of pretending it's not there, you acknowledge it. You say, "This is what I'm feeling today. I miss connection. I miss being part of someone's everyday life." And then you look for ways to start small, to build new bridges. Maybe that's mentoring someone younger. Maybe it's writing letters or volunteering in places where your presence makes a difference. Maybe it's fostering pets, joining a book club, or sharing stories from your life that can inspire someone else. Loneliness shrinks in the presence of purpose. When you wake up with a reason to reach out, to move, to give, you begin to take your life back piece by piece. And while nothing will ever fully replace the bond you long for with your children, you can still be whole. You can still feel joy. You can still laugh, dance, cry, hope, and grow. And you know what else? Sometimes, when you least expect it, they come back. You get a call out of the blue, a letter, a message that says, "I've been thinking about you." And by that time, you'll be ready, not desperate, not bitter, just open, just strong, just full of your own life again. And if they never come back, you'll still be okay, because you chose not to let their silence become your story. Because what we all want at the heart of it is connection, to feel seen, to know that someone out there still cares. And when that connection seems to disappear, especially with your own children, it can shake your world in ways that are hard to even explain. But if you made it this far with me, there's something you already know deep down. This is the end of your story. It's just a chapter. And you are still the author. The pen is still in your hand. And while you can't control whether they call or visit or remember the things you used to do together, you can control how you show up for yourself. One of the most life-giving things you can do right now is find ways to make your world feel full again. That doesn't mean forcing yourself to smile through pain. It means allowing room for something new. New routines, new faces, new joys you might have never expected. Maybe it's creating a little ritual just for you, lighting a candle every morning and saying a few words that ground you. Maybe it's picking up an old hobby you let go of long ago, or even trying something completely out of your comfort zone. Painting, dancing, singing, learning a new language. Not to prove anything to anyone, but to remind yourself that life is still moving, still worth showing up for. You've spent decades pouring your heart into others. Now is the time to pour some of that love right back into your own life. If there's one thing that becomes clearer with age, it's this: peace doesn't come from other people's behavior. It comes from how you choose to respond. And choosing peace doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're finally giving yourself permission to let go of what's out of your hands. Here's something you can do today that might seem small, but can make a huge difference. Start a kindness journal. Each night, write down one kind thing you did for yourself, not for someone else, just for you. Maybe it was making your favorite tea, taking a walk in the sunshine, or listening to a song that brought back good memories. Why does this matter? Because when the world gets quiet, you need to become your own comfort. When no one's calling, you need to be the voice in your head that says, "You are doing okay. You are enough." And if there are moments when that still feels hard, when the silence feels too heavy, reach out, not just to your family, but to the world around you. People are often more willing to connect than we think. Sometimes all it takes is saying, "Hey, I could use some company today," or "Would you like to take a walk with me?" Or even, "I'm missing someone." Do you ever feel that way too? You don't have to carry this alone. You're not the only one feeling left behind. And the more we talk about it, the more we make space for healing, not just for ourselves, but for others too. Now, before we finish, I want to leave you with something important. Just because someone stops calling doesn't mean you stop being a parent. Your love didn't expire. It didn't vanish. It's still there, and that love still means something. Whether it's expressed in letters you write but don't send, or prayers you whisper late at night, or simply in the strength it takes to keep going, that love is sacred. But you are more than a parent. You are a full human being. You have dreams that still matter, stories that still need telling, beauty that still radiates from your smile, your laugh, your kindness, your wisdom. This isn't about moving on from the people who've hurt you. It's about moving toward the life you still deserve. You're not just surviving this, you're growing through it. And that kind of growth, that kind of emotional courage, it's the kind of thing younger generations could learn from if they ever take the time to really look your way again. So hold your head high, not because everything is perfect, but because you are still here, still showing up, still choosing to live with heart, even when the world forgets to clap for you. And if no one else says it, let me be the one to tell you now. You matter. You are loved. You are enough. If this video spoke to you in any way, I'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's create a space where real conversations happen, where we support each other, and where no one feels like they have to go through this alone. If you found this helpful, give it a like. It helps others find this video too. And if you like more content like this, gentle, honest conversations about the challenges and beauty of life after 60, go ahead and subscribe. This channel is a place for you. Here's to living your best life, even when it doesn't look the way you thought it would. Here's to peace, purpose, and rediscovering joy at any age. You've got this, and I'm cheering for you every step of the way.